show! I'm Kevin BKT, your host. Guys, thank you so much for watching this show. And guys, please check out my Instagram and follow me. From here in Massachusetts, we're going all the way to New York. And guys, my guest today is a sweet comedian. Señoras y señores, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Seth Herzog! Seth!
Hey!
Wow, it's a great pleasure to have you here on my show. Thank you so much for this moment for like so long. Because I think you're very funny. How are you? How's everything?
I've been in New York City and watching the country unfold and seeing how the drama is gonna, deal with the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm working at the Fallon show. I still work at the Tonight Show every day, and I have 2 little baby girls, and I try and get through the day as best I can.
Great. So you live in New York, right?
I live in Manhattan. Yeah, I live in New York City, right there in the middle.
Do you think New York is a land for opportunities for comedians?
Yes, I definitely think New York's the land of opportunity for comics. Here's the thing. There's a lot, maybe people might say LA has more opportunity for comics because there's maybe more production and there's more parts in film or television and there's more jobs to write. But if you just want to do stand-up, there's not nearly the stage time. Like if you want to learn to be a great comic, you come to New York and you start performing. But there's stages, there's shows, there's like hundreds and hundreds of shows every week that you could get on. And then the more you do, the better you get, and the more you get on other shows.
So I'm so glad to have you here, especially because you have been in some late shows, especially with Jimmy Fallon. I love Jimmy Fallon.
As you should. He's a great guy and a great comic, and his show is so much fun to work on. I have a great time on it, and I've been on the show. Work on the show for 12 years. I mean, we did late night for 5 years, and we've been the Tonight Show now for almost 7 years. And I've done a lot of bits on the show and sketches on the show, and do lots of little characters and stupid stuff. I'm often kind of naked. That's kind of one of the things I do on the show. But I'm also the warm-up comic at the show. So every day before the show starts, I perform, I do jokes, and I dance with the Roots. The Roots and I do songs together, and we just have fun and entertain the audience as best we can to get them kind of psyched up. It's really fun.
Seth, you're a comedian, right?
Yes,
and
sir.
You have done some shows and series, right? Tell me, how did you decide to become a comedian?
That's a great question. When I was your age, I was an actor. I was doing a lot of theater. I was like very serious young actor. And I did a lot of theater, and then I went to theater camp. I went to Stage Door Manor, which is in upstate New York, and I did that for 5 summers, and I trained and I learned how to really be a great actor. And then, so I always really wanted to do theater. Like that was my thing. I thought of myself as like a serious actor, but I was always kind of funny, and I always did funny parts. Like the parts they always gave me were funny parts. So I was sort of naturally understood comedy, how comedy worked in terms of character.
Got it.
And I love stand-up. Even as a little kid, I loved stand-up. I loved Steve when I was your age. In the 5th grade talent show, I did stand-up for the first time as like something easy to do, And then when I moved to New York, even when I went to college, I did a lot of theater. I did stand-up once in college, as like a lark, but I really was doing theater. And then I moved to New York as an adult, and I was doing theater, and I started doing stand-up on the side as like a side hustle, as like a hobby. And then I think it was like a few years into being in New York, I just decided not to do theater anymore and not to think of myself as an actor and to think of myself as a comic. And I gotta tell you, It just opened so many doors. Once I was like, I'm just gonna be a comic, I'm gonna perform every night, and I'm not gonna try and do theater, it changed my life.
So, do you write your own jokes for stand-ups, or do you have someone to help you?
A little bit of both. I mean, I mostly write all my own jokes, but I have a few funny friends who aren't comics. They're not stand-ups, they're not like proprietary about their jokes. They're in other fields and they help. So I have a couple friends who help out, who they think like comedians, but they don't perform. So they'll write jokes all day and they have nothing to do with them, so they give them to me. And sometimes a lot of them are great. Sometimes they aren't. I find the ones that work for me. So I have a little bit of help, but 80% I write all my own stuff.
Very good. Amazing. Incredible. Has anyone stolen your jokes? Because in Brazil, that happens a lot.
Oh, really? Is that a
Yes.
big thing that happens in Brazil? Is there
Yeah.
a culture of stand-up in Brazil? Do people do stand-up a lot? I didn't know that.
it
I know there's
does.
a sketch show. There's a Saturday Night Live sort of sketch show in Brazil, right? Isn't it like a late night sketch show?
There's a lot of stand-up comedian shows in Brazil.
I know one of the guys on that show, one of the Brazilian dudes on the sort of late night Saturday night sketch show they have there.
Oh, are you talking about Danilo Gentili?
I'm trying to remember his name. He emails me all the time. I have to look up his name, but I'll let you know who it is. You should have him on your show.
I know some comedians over there, but I don't know everyone.
Oh, there's no sketch, like a sketch thing? That's not a talk show?
I think there's a show called Zorra Total.
I'll put you guys in touch though. But anyway, has anyone ever stolen my jokes, you said? Yes. I had one. I've had a few, it's happened a few times, but I've only ever confronted the person once. And it was a guy I knew and liked, and it wasn't like he was doing like a vibe or a thing or close to it. He was doing like the whole thing, beginning to end. And I didn't even know he was doing it. A lot of other people told me he was doing it. So after like the sixth person was like, hey, this guy's doing your whole chunk, I had to say something to him, and he was really upset and really mad and was like, I made that up. That's not yours. I don't know. Da, da, da. And his wife emailed me a long letter. Anyway, it was bad. And this was like 10 years ago, and he's still weird when he sees me.
Pretty cool. So how do you know when you have good jokes? Is there something that you bring little by little to your show to feel how people are going to react? Or you bring it all at once to see the reaction of the audience?
That's a great question, Kev. I bring the joke. I mean, all jokes get formed over time, except for some jokes you just have it right the first time. It's pretty rare. I mean, sort of 50-50 really. But I mean, you write out what you think is funny, you try it out, and then often what'll happen is in the telling of the joke in front of the live audience, you discover new things. Like you'll give the premise and then you'll give your joke A, and then they'll laugh, and that gives you the confidence, and your mind starts going when you're on stage, and then you're like, well, what about this and this and this and this? And you start talking it out loud kind of in front of the audience, and you see what hits and what doesn't hit, and you're like, what things you should keep. So that's how a lot of people, I mean, that's the process of some comics, at least for me, is I talk it out live on stage. If I don't do it at home first, I often will talk out an idea at home to myself, and I'll write down my ideas, and then when I hit the stage, I talk it out again, and then other things will come up, and then so that's my process kind of. Was I write it all out mostly at home, I try it out on stage, we'll see how it goes, and then I usually discover new things in the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. And you're doing Instagram Live twice a week right now, right?
Yes, that's right.
With some other comedians, right? Even some actors. What is the main subject?
That's such a great question. The main subject is often their lives. Like I pour into their lives a little bit because I know the people I interview are friends of mine, people I know pretty well. And I know what's interesting about them, but my audience doesn't know them. So I will ask questions to get certain responses out of them in terms of like, I know that like last week I interviewed this musical theater star, Patrick Dunn, who is also an Elvis impersonator. He's one of the best in the world. He was like a side thing he started doing outside of doing Broadway. He started doing Elvis impersonators, and now he became like the best one in the world. So that's a sort of an interesting side part of someone's life. So I was asking questions about that and questions about being on tour. So I try to bring out what's interesting about someone else's life. And then in doing that, I try to find 2 or 3 really great stories from their life. Like everyone has 2 or 3 great stories about their lives or interesting moments. And I try to find those because that's why people are listening. People want to laugh, but I find more than people want to laugh, they want to be moved. So I always try what's the funniest or most interesting story someone can tell about their lives. Like that's what I'm looking for. That's a general idea, but in terms of topics, I'm the most consistent thing. So the topic often comes back to me and like, you know, whatever's going on in my life, you know. So I'm trying to think what else. There's no other topics that we generally talk about. But I always ask, but there's always like a couple questions I always ask. Like, I don't know if you do that on your show, but on my show, I find there's like, I always ask this question as like a way to end the show. And the question I was asking might be a little morbid for you, but was, have you ever almost died? Because you get to a point in your life where you've been through a lot of experiences. And at some point in your life, you're going to experience the fact that you should have died. Like you fell off a rock, or you got in a car accident, or something happened where you were fine, but you shouldn't have been. All odds, you know. So everyone has those stories, but no one ever talks about it. So I've been prone to ask people, have you ever almost died? And everyone has a story of different sorts, you know. It's kind of interesting.
Great. So I have 2 little girls, right?
Yes, 2 girls, yes sir.
You must be so busy planning some funny things, right? Do you find the time to do funny things with them too?
They're 2 years old. They're pretty funny on their own. I try to be funny with them. I try to make them laugh. They're very sensitive girls, I'm finding. And that if I'm not laughing, they think I'm sad. So if I'm not laughing, they're like, Daddy's sad. It's like, Daddy's not sad, Daddy's just tired. They're like, oh, Daddy tired. So I try to be funny and goofy with them. They're pretty good audience members. So if you even try a little bit to be funny, they'll respond. They'll really they like to laugh a lot. And they like to enjoy simple things. So if you do something simple, like simple faces, or like say a word funny or something like that, they'll laugh a lot. You know, you don't have to be too sophisticated to make them laugh. But they're fun. When they're not fighting each other or crying, they're fun.
So on your show, Sweet.
Yeah.
Who did you have on your show and you got so surprised? Just like I am right now to have you here.
That's a great question. I did a live comedy show, Sweet, that was at Theater Space for 15 years. I think it's been 15 years. Yeah. So I had, you know, over the 15 years, many comics on. Who was I most surprised? Kevin Nealon has been on 3 or 4 times now. He's a really great comic. Used to be on Saturday Night Live. And I'm more surprised because I don't really know him. You know, there's other bigger stars that have been on the show, but I wasn't surprised because I'm friends with them. Like Paul Rudd has been on the show. Zach Galifianakis has been on the show a bunch of times. But I'm friends with them, so I wasn't really surprised. You know what I'm saying? Louis C.K. showed up. I'm not really friends with him, so I was kind of surprised. I knew he was coming maybe, but we're not friends, but he did show up and that was kind of a big deal. This is before his downfall. Who else? I mean, I've had a lot of big names on the show over the years. I'm trying to even think. Peter Dinklage, you know, from Game of Thrones was on the show a lot. before Game of Thrones. He used to do sketches and stuff and was like my co-host a couple times. I don't know, tons of people. I mean, I've had the show for 14 years. We've had a lot of great people on the show.
Great. Now, tell me something. How did you first meet Jimmy Fallon?
How did I first meet Jimmy? It's a good question. I first met him. He doesn't remember this. Was when we were younger. I had a friend who was a casting director in New York. It was a camp friend. It was a Stage Door Manor camp friend, a theater camp friend. And she was a casting director. And she would call me in for a lot of TV shows and stuff that they were casting there. And one day she calls me up out of nowhere. And she goes, "We just met the funniest young guy. He's so funny, so adorable. Oh my God," we were crying, laughing. And me as another young comic, I'm like, "Why are you telling me this? Why are you calling me to tell me you found someone funnier than me?" But she was like, "You have to meet him. We decided you guys have to meet." So it was Jimmy that she was talking about. And the other casting director took me to see him perform at the comic strip, I believe it was. Is that right? I forgot where we went. Anyway, and I saw him perform. He was in from LA. He was living in LA at the time. And we met briefly after that. But the truth is that was back in like 98. And we didn't really become friends until like 2005, which was many years later. We had run into each other and we had a lot of mutual friends, so we would get introduced a lot. But he saw an internet short I was in, a Stella short. You know, Stella's this comedy group. I'm friends with those guys, and I was in one of their shorts, and he thought I was particularly funny in their internet short. So then some of our mutual friends were like, "Oh, you should meet Seth, you know, because he's the guy you think is funny in that video." And then we hit it off, and then we became good buddies. And then when late night started, he asked me to work on the show.
Great, awesome. So, so you warm up the audience in tonight's show with Jimmy Fallon, right? How does that work? How do you have any plans? How do you do it?
No, I don't have any plans. I make it up off the top of my head. You know, it's funny because it's changed from where we used to. The show's changed since the pandemic. So it used to be like we had 225 people in the audience, and I'd come out and I would do 5 minutes with the crowd. I have the same 5-minute jokes, same 5 minutes about like, "Welcome to the show. This is what's going to happen. These are some jokes about the show. This is how you're supposed to act." Like, it was kind of introductory, but it was also very funny. And then I bring out the band. The band and I would do a song together. And then I would go out into the audience for 10 minutes, just make it up. Literally make it up, just do crowd work, as they call it. Like, where are you from? What's your job? What are you doing? And just make it funny, which is a whole other skill and a whole other thing entirely. And that was really fun to do. But now I'm wearing a mask and a face shield. So there's already like a weird barrier between me and the audience. I'm just sort of getting used to like performing with a face shield and a mask on. But we only have 6 people in the crowd, and they're all like NBC employees. They're not even doing anything interesting. So they're just random NBC employees from different departments, like the security department or IT department or marketing or whatever. So today happened to be a really good audience. Like, they were really funny and really fun, but that's not the case a lot of the times. So I went out there, and today I just talked to them. You know, I was like, "Thank you for being here. There's only 6 of you. You guys have to be really fun. You guys have to be like 7 people's worth of fun, you know." And then I just asked them questions about their jobs and who they are and where they work, and just have fun. You just learn. It's just a skill to learn how to make mundane answers funny. You know, you do it enough and you figure out how to do it. You know, it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So I did that for 5 minutes with the audience, which, so depending on how you're doing, can be either really long or really short. And then I bring out the band, and then the band and I do a couple songs, and that's it.
I know you have been doing this job for like 11 years now, right? I even saw you warm up the audience dressed up as Wonder Woman, right? That was so funny. I could not stop laughing. Guys, take a look at this.
Well, I'll tell you that I wasn't warming up the audience then. That was in the show. That was part of the actual show. That wasn't before the show. That was on the show. That's a bit I've done in my act for 20 years. It's just a wacky dance piece. And the only reason I chose Wonder Woman is because the old 70s TV show theme song was really fun, upbeat song. And I thought the costume was funny. That's really it. It's just like a fun song to dance to, and it has a funny costume that goes with it. So I did kind of Wonder Woman for years and years in my act. And I would start doing it out like burlesque shows and other shows, and just people just really think people just love it. So I went on tour with Jimmy before the Tonight Show. We did a little comedy tour with a bunch of comics, and I would do the Wonder Woman bit every night on stage. So he knew I did it. And then when Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman in the movies, was a guest on the Tonight Show, he was like, we're gonna get you to do Wonder Woman in front of her. She's not gonna know it, we're gonna surprise her. So they played Box of Lies, and then her prize, whether she was gonna win or lose, the prize was gonna be I was gonna do the dance. That was the bit. But she just didn't know about it.
Yeah, when I put on my Instagram, you dressed up as Wonder Woman, I had a lot of people from Brazil saying, who is that guy?
Yes, they're like, I want to know how to avoid him. This guy looks crazy. That's funny. I'm glad they were interested. Well, they can follow me if they want to follow me. You know, you guys in Brazil, if you want to follow me on Insta at Seth Herzog, Sethzog. Let's get it done.
Yeah. Right here we have your Instagram down here. I'm gonna ask everybody to follow you.
Thank you, Kevin. I know you're really good at promoting others.
Guys, já segue meu amigo Seth Herzog aí, viu?
It's gonna be right here.
Yeah.
I love it. This is fun. I'm having a blast.
Is that true that you performed your show in Kuwait? How did that happen?
Such a funny story. I mean, so in 2008, I got a phone call on April Fool's Day. It was April 1st. I got a phone call, which I'm sure is a joke. Mm-hmm. And it's a guy, a comedy producer I barely know. And he says, hey, do you want to go to Iraq and do a bunch of shows? And I think he's kidding because it's April Fool's. And I say, yeah, sure, I'll go. Because I don't want him to see me flinch. It's April Fool's. I'm not going to back down on his joke. I might be like, what are you talking about? So I said, yeah, sure, I'll go. That sounds fun. He goes, great, I'll have someone call you back. They're going to get your passport number. We're going to get the State Department on it. I'm like, do your thing, buddy. So all of a sudden I get a phone call from the State Department. They want my passport number. They want to do a background check on me. And I'm thinking, these guys are going deep on this April Fool's joke. And then I realized it was not a joke, and I had actually signed up to go to Iraq to do a bunch of comedy shows. There was a comic named Scott Kennedy. Now, Scott Kennedy loved the troops, and he was a guy who was hired by Armed Forces Entertainment. And Scott Kennedy would go from LA to Kuwait and Iraq every month. He would go for a week every month, and he'd do shows, and he'd bring two other comics with him. And then, so this trip, I guess people had bailed and they wanted someone to fill in for some other people who bailed. So they asked me if I wanted to come. And I said, sure. And I went for 10 days. We were supposed to go to Iraq and do a bunch of shows on some small bases, but we couldn't get in. There was a sandstorm actually when we got there. It was a terrible sandstorm and we couldn't fly out of Kuwait. So we got to Kuwait and we couldn't leave Kuwait. So we stayed in Kuwait for 10 days. We did 3 shows in 10 days. We did a show at the Army base, the Navy base, and the Air Force base. And I hung out in the Army base for days, just hung out with the soldiers, ate, toured around, talked to them. It was a really wild experience. The shows went pretty well. They were very psyched that we were there. I did do the Wonder Woman bit while I was there, which I was kind of freaked out about because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with that stuff. They're like very homophobic in the Army. It's not like I'm not gay, but I could be perceived as kind of a gay bit. But they were cool with it because it's so vulnerable and so out of their it's so out of their normal realm of what comedy is. So they really loved it. The Army guys particularly thought it was funny. The Air Force guys liked it. The Navy guys didn't like it for some reason. They did not think it was funny. But it was a really great experience, just hanging on base in Kuwait and talking to soldiers, and to find out how the war's being fought and who these people are who are there fighting for us. You find out like all their backgrounds, and it was really interesting. I'm glad I went.
Mm-hmm. Seth, so you host once a year the dating game show, right? Tell me, how does it work?
Well, I think you're talking about at Sweet, at my weekly comedy show, my live show I used to do live back when we had audiences. I have several themed shows I do every year, and one of them was around Valentine's Day. We do a dating show, and it's transformed over the years to try and boil it down to the simplest way to do it without taking up too much time. And the way I do it now is I have 3 to 4 comics. They do their sets, and then I've gone around to the audience before the show starts. I've gone around and talked to like 10 to 12 people, and I get fun facts about them. Just random fun facts, like I've never been to Vienna, or I hate the letter E, or I can pilot a plane, or whatever little personal facts about them. And then I say to the comic, I was like, okay, we have a bunch of people who want to date in the audience. Here's a bunch of fun facts. Judging from these facts, you tell me who you want to date. So they pick someone. They're like, I want the guy who went to jail, you know. So then that person comes on stage, and then they have an awkward date on stage in front of the audience for 5 to 6 minutes. And then I have a mic, and my co-host has a mic, and we're commenting on their date as it's happening. So 4 people have mics, and we're all making jokes. And it's just kind of fun and awkward. And it's always been fun. And it's really spontaneous and silly. You never know what's gonna happen. And sometimes there's sparks, often there isn't. And sometimes people are drunk and being annoying. And we've been doing it now for years and years and years. It's been really fun. And there was kind of a couple was made out of it. One time, like a real couple happened. Like they went on vacation together. It was really wild.
So Seth, do you think anyone can be a stand-up comedian, or they have to have a pure talent?
That's a great question. It's less about talent. I mean, it's great to have talent and some sort of natural aptitude for the art of it. There's a real art and sensitivity to how your energy and the audience's energy is mixing, and how jokes go, and how your energy is going to be in a performative way. So it's good to have some sort of innate talent or to figure that out. But more than talent, it's your stamina and like how much pain can you take. You just have to perform all the time. You just have to, and you can't have to do it for a result. I can't be like, I'm going to perform to get this result. Like, I want to be on this show. I want to make this amount of money. Because it's probably never going to happen, or sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. The result has to be your whole goal only has to be, I just want to be good at this. I just want to get good at this one thing, this one art. And if that's your only goal, then you won't care about anything else. And when things come, it's great. And when they don't, it's fine, because that's not what you're about anyway. You know, if you don't get that special, or you don't do that thing that everyone else is doing, fine. You're just trying to get good at this one thing. You know, you got to keep that in mind. So if you're gonna do anything, if you want to be on people to see it, you have to make sure it's really good. A lot of people just post mediocre stuff, and like, who cares? It just sits online. My tip is post less maybe, and make sure it's good. Or because but there's other people who would say the opposite. People would be like, well, it's a content game. You got to produce content, and people will follow you, and you'll get followers. And some of it will be great, and some of it won't. That's a different game. I get that. But in this new internet world, there's a lot of people who just think that just being funny online or having little videos is all of a sudden you're a comic. Like, if you edit well, all of a sudden you're a comic, and you're not. You either have to decide whether you're just an internet comic who's making videos, or if you're a stand-up. And if you're a stand-up, you got to get out in front of people.
So Seth, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This moment is unforgettable to me. It means a lot. Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy.
Of course, buddy. I'm so happy to be here. It was so much fun. Your show is top notch. I'm sure you're gonna edit down whatever this was to a good 10 minutes of fun.
Guys, this was Seth Herzog. I hope all of you liked it. Go right now to my Instagram and follow me. See you guys next time. Bye. Tchau, gente.